last speaker, which means that I should have something important to say, but I'm in a bit of a quandary or a pickle, if you will, with the topic I've been asked to talk about, which is sort of the design process at Simple. Simple is an online bank replacement. We're known for having a really well-crafted, well-honed user experience with sort of design front as a focus. But this presents a couple of problems to me to talk about to you guys, because I'm not a designer. I was going to say I struggle to even say that I have a sense of style, but I now have this meta-anxiety because last night Matthias said that he really liked my watch, and then Swiss Miss came up to me like an hour ago and said, I really like your watch. So maybe there are some things I have some sense of taste over, but fundamentally, like, I'm not a design person. That's not my background. I've had a really weird career. I dropped out of medical school in my last year to go and make like analog video synthesizers and do weird shit. The only sort of common thread to my career is like not banking, but I'm a hacker. I really like taking shit apart and putting it back together, and if I can put it back together in a way where something beautiful or unusual or better happens, that's kind of cool, and that's what we've kind of tried to do with Simple. The other worry I have about talking about our design process at Simple is we don't actually have a design process. It's not like I can come up on stage and put up a slide that says, if you look here at step 7C, this is where we integrate the feedback from the design committee to the style guide or shit like that. That's not how we work. Yet, at the end of the day, we've sort of built something that we're kind of proud of. Our customers really love the product that we've built, and we're sort of known for having design at the core of what we do. And people come to us and they say, how do you do this? Tell me about how you've structured your design team, your creative team. And the easy answer to say is we don't actually have a design team. We don't have anyone on staff who's responsible for graphic design. We don't have an interaction designer. We don't have industrial designers, don't have brand or digital or strategy people. We're just a bunch of people who make shit. And so probably the real answer to how we structure our design process is that everyone at Simple is involved in design. I'm not a designer, but I've got an eye for some things. Everyone at the company is united by this really strong belief in the mission that we're trying to accomplish to help people better control and understand their finances. And collectively, we're able to bring the passions that we have outside of work to work so that we can take the skills and crafts and ideas and make a product that together is really extraordinary. So the way I think to start to understand the evolution of our design process, to look at how we begun. We begun in a basement here in Brooklyn, and the motivation for me starting Simple was that it's okay if I swear, right? I fucking hated my bank. I was with a mega bank here in New York, and they fucked me over a couple of times, and I'm like a technology dude, and every time I logged into the website, it just made me cringe because it looked shitty, and half the time it would break, and I'd have these really bizarre experiences when I needed to call customer service when, I really didn't want to speak to them, they really didn't want to help me, but we had to sort of get shit done and nothing ever happened. And so I had this really simple idea of maybe there is a way of making a more human type of banking experience. It's not like crazy revolutionary, but it seemed like something that this world needed, particularly here in America. And so I had a co-founder, and we're both technology people, and we liked this idea of sort of minimal viable product, iterating very quickly. But it's hard to do that in banking. It's not like we could have gone down to my basement with a case of Red Bull on a Friday night and whipped out a bank by Monday morning. We could have tried, but we would have gone to jail, and that would have sucked. Banking is highly regulated, extraordinarily political. We started doing this in 2009. We knew it was going to take us many years before we could get this thing out to market. The technology involved is just brain-crushingly horrendous. So we knew that we had to sort of front-load the process of customer development before we had customers. We couldn't rely on iterating on a basic idea very quickly because it was going to take years. So the first thing we did is we put up a website. And on that website, we just outlined the principles behind what we wanted to achieve with Simple. We wanted to be honest. We wanted to be transparent. We wanted to treat our customers with respect. And we specifically didn't talk about sort of any of our vision for the product because we didn't want to color people's ideas of what that meant to them. We wanted to hear the unvarnished, non-nerdy response of what this means to people. And And we put this website up and said, if you want to learn more, give us your email address and we'll sign you up for an invite. And I tweeted a link out to this page, and my friends started signing up, and like Drew would sign up and say, hey Drew, how are things going at NYU? Would love to hear how you think about banking. Then they'd start to share that link with their friends, and their friends would share it with other people, and then soon I'd get like these emails from people or people signing up who were just total strangers to me. And we took the same approach that we took with the people that we did know. So we'd go and Google their email addresses and we'd find their LinkedIn page and we'd say, oh, hey Joe, I see that you're currently a designer. I'd love to know what you think about banking. And people started sharing information with us. And the first thing that we sort of learned as a company is that we had to listen. Banks pay a lot of lip service, and a lot of large companies pay lip service to this notion of listening to their customers. And the reality is people don't talk to their banks as much as they say they want to listen. They might yell at their banks, but they don't engage in conversation because banks don't respond back in an authentic fashion. And what we found is that by starting these conversations in a very authentic, personal way, people wanted to talk to us, and boy did they want to talk to us. We don't live in a society where people talk about their banking relationships with friends. They don't talk about it to their banks because their banks don't listen, but when there's a brand that's authentic, people share their fears, their anxieties, their desires, and what they wanted from banking with us in huge volumes. We did 10,000 of these personal emails before we started automating the process, and we learned a lot. Another thing we learned is people didn't know how to talk about banking. When they responded to the question of what they wanted, they used sort of the language and terminology and mechanisms of banking to describe their needs, because the implicit assumption was that banking is this immutable construct that will not change, that will not modify itself to meet what I actually want. So when I tell you what I need, I'm going to say I need a rule system on top of my bank that lets me transfer $1,000 out of my checking account to my savings account every second Tuesday when the balance in my checking account is over $3,000. And we're like, okay, that's what you need. And we sort of approach it with skepticism and the rule of sort of asking 5 whys. So we'd ask, why do you need that? It's like, well, because I want to sort of avoid overdraft fees on this account. Well, why do you want to avoid overdraft fees? Well, I don't, the $35 overdraft fee doesn't kill me financially, but it feels bad. Well, why does it feel bad? Well, it makes me feel like an idiot when I pay an overdraft fee. And this is a really powerful emotional thing that we'd hear from a lot of people. And as we sort of did this experience of drilling out into the whys, we heard that people wanted simplicity. What they wanted at the end of the day was to sort of get on with their lives and have their bank be sort of a collaborator in their life where they had a sense of control and connectedness to what was going on in their financial lives. People had questions and anxieties, and they wanted a service that was not setting them up to be in an adversarial relationship, which was the dominant form of relationship that most people had with banks. The second thing we did after listening to a lot of people and hearing sort of this commonality of stories is we sort of turned to the academic literature. And in the world of behavioral economics, we've sort of realized that people are not sort of mathematical savants. People are not rational thinkers about finance. People have a lot of emotions around money. They have a lot of subconscious biases that make them sort of avoid doing the right thing that they should be doing with their money. So we took a very large corpus of user stories and sort of the literature from academia, and we allowed that to sort of shape what our first version of the product would look like long before we had customers looking at this thing. And the first thing that we landed on was this notion of safe to spend. We heard from the user stories that there was this really common behavior where people would log in, they'd look at all their accounts, they'd do some mental math, sum everything up, and then subtract out how much money they needed to pay for rent and how much money they wanted to set aside for things. And they'd feel uneasy while doing this because doing mental math kind of sucks. And they sort of wanted to avoid that feeling like an idiot overdraft fee. So we just did this for everyone when they log in. What safe to spend tells you is how much money can I afford to spend today without hurting myself tomorrow. It's not complicated math, but it does 2 things for our customers. One is it answers the thing that they really want to know when they're logging into their bank. But 2 is it really strongly signals what we care about as a company, and that is being more human and being a partner with our customers, and it's really powerful. And as we went through sort of the collection of stories we got from people, we built up a set of principles. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'll talk about 2 here because they relate to the next thing. One is design for how people think, not how banks work. Banks are really bad at abstracting away the shit mechanism of banking, and they sort of make this assumption that customers have to become experts in banking to be a reasonable banker. Now, everyone needs to have banking in this modern life, but not everyone needs to be an expert. Why is that the case? Just because it's always been that way doesn't mean it always has to be that way. The second idea that's important to us is we have an opinion. We fight a lot internally about what we want to share with customers. We don't want to set our customers up to have this sort of paradox of choice where there are 12 different ways of doing things. And we'll have like 25 different ways of doing things internally, and we'll come up with, this is the opinion, this is the one way we want to do things, and this is how we'll present it to customers. And this feature here is called goals, and this represents a lot of that stuff. People wanted to save up for different things. We boiled this down to the concept if people want to save up for something that's going to cost some money by a period of time. We built an interface that was really much more human-oriented, didn't force people to think about savings accounts or laddering CDs or any of that sort of stuff. It gave a really easy way to say, I'm saving up for my baby delivery. This is actually one of my employees' set of goals. He's having a kid soon. And these were the sort of ideas that we came up with. And we came up with all this stuff in a vacuum, but based on the stories we'd heard from customers. And we were very sort of anxious as to what would happen when we launched. So in July of last year, we launched. And this was an awesome, awesome experience for us. It took 3 years to build this. It's a complicated beast, but it was also nerve-wracking. We didn't know if it was going to work. We didn't know if people would get it. We did this completely absent from feedback groups or any sort of customer interaction because for regulatory reasons, we couldn't bring customers onto a platform that wasn't approved. And so we launched it, and there was this big sigh of relief around the office when sort of the first person created a goal. Because we didn't have any tutorials telling people how to create goals. It was just this tab called goals. Someone clicked on it, and they put money into a goal. And that was really cool. People are getting it. People are saving money. We just had another piece of data that came through recently that's really exciting to me as sort of a finance nerd or a math nerd, is that people like to have smooth cash flows. Because when you have dips and spikes with rent and income and all that sort of stuff, you get these swings of anxiety. And the traditional way that people smooth their cash flows is by leaning on a credit card, because a credit card will fill in the gaps for you. But the credit card companies are really good at fucking you over and getting you to carry a balance and carrying interest, and it's not a healthy way to smooth your cash flows. What we've seen with Simple is that by the simple design choice that we made of putting safe to spend as the big orange number and available balance as the small number, safe to spend is a lot smoother, so people's cash flow usage on Simple is a lot smoother, and they're doing that without using a credit card. And this is kind of batshit insane because it's really hard, according to the literature, to affect behavioral change in finance because it's money and complicated and it's hard, and we just made a design choice that changed how tens of thousands of people deal with money in a really cool way. So we wanted to double down on the things that were working, and this one might play over a little weird with this audience. One of the things that's been working really well for us is the notion that makers design. We don't have designers. We think wherever possible, the person who's implementing an idea needs to be the person who is designing that idea. They best understand the mechanics, they're thinking about it the most, and they can bring a unique perspective. One of the areas where we've got a lot of love is from our packaging design. We started thinking about this a couple of years ago, and we were going to go out to an industrial design firm that we really liked to make the packaging. And we decided not to do that. One of our JavaScript engineers said, hey, can I spend a week just hacking a tech lab, a tech shop in San Fran with a laser cutter? Can I make something? I'm like, sure, go for it. And he came up with something that really strongly reflected our brand values. And we thought, you know what? We're going to double down on this. We're going to keep this as our way of working. So when we do the traditional design process internally, we don't do wireframes, we don't do mock-ups. Everything's done in HTML, JavaScript. We want everything to be interactive, very holistic. It plays to the set of skills that we have as a company. It allows us to prototype and iterate really quickly and get to an outcome that we think is a lot better. We have also sort of 3 overarching principles at the company that sort of guide our user experience. One is that we have to control our own technology. The world of banking technology is a clusterfuck of crap. I am allowed to swear, I was told. It's okay. So in banking, you have systems that were built 20 years ago on top of mainframes that were built 40 years ago that were designed to replace pen and paper processes from the 1950s. And they make all these design choices when it comes to technology in banking that just lead to very leaky abstractions. You're exposed to all this crap, and it's really hard on that technological infrastructure base to build innovation, to take a modern approach. So we had to do the opposite. We had to build everything ourselves, which is a lot of work. 2 is we had to control our incentives. We had to tie our incentives as a business very closely to what our customers wanted. We know that the large banks in America make most of their money from fees and charges. They fundamentally make money by keeping customers confused. We wanted to do the opposite. We wanted to provide you with tools to help you understand your finances. So we never profit as a business from fees. We never want to make money when our customers don't understand what's going on. And that's really reinforcing for the user experience we want to deliver. And the last thing is people. We started this business in Brooklyn, but we actually moved 2 years ago over to Portland, Oregon. Now, I love New York. It's an awesome city, but Portland has a really strong sense of craft, and we had to hire up a large customer relations team, and that team brings their passion and care for their interest outside of work to work, and they're able to express themselves in a way that is really meaningful. How many people here are simple customers, by any chance? There's actually a bunch up the front, or I just can't see up the back. It's kind of cool. But the customer service experience is really unique because these people honestly care and they come to it with passion. We have another principle that I'm running out of time for, being confident and not arrogant, so I might skip this one. But, I want to concentrate a little bit on what's the most important thing for me as a CEO that I think a lot about, and I could spend 3 hours talking about this. We are a successful operational company. We have 70 people right now working on this problem. We're now in that really exciting phase in the company's life whereby we're doubling our headcount faster than the last time we doubled our headcount and so on. And so I have this question of how do we maintain this organic, flexible process in a way that can cope with scale. And this is critical for us. And the way that I thought about it was a framework of what are the goals and constraints and what can we do with those goals and constraints. So here is the environment that we operate in. We work with partners and regulators, and they all have competing needs, and they impose a bunch of different constraints on what we can and can't do. Banking is a very tightly controlled space. On the flip side, there's a bunch of goals that we want to achieve. Probably the 2 most important goals for us are maintaining high bandwidth communication from our customers to the company. It's how we started, by listening. We always want to listen and be responsive in an authentic way and provide a set of tools that meet what people are talking about. And the way you do that is the second goal, which is maintaining a pace of innovation. And from my perspective, for a culture to succeed at innovation, you need to have 2 things going on. You need to have agency for your employees. They need to feel like and know that they can positively impact the product and service that they're providing as individuals. And 2, to go with that, you need shared clarity of purpose. Everyone needs to know that we're driving in the same direction to reach this grand vision of changing the landscape of banking around the world. And so this is what our current process, to the best I could come up with, looks like. And there's some really cool things about it. Every employee across the company can submit ideas. And this is not like our design process or product process. This is like our process for everything. So if you want to get a new game for the game room or whatever, it goes through this process. So everyone in the company submits an idea into an idea repository. This is held in GitHub, which means that our customer relations people know how to do markdown and pull requests. Then that goes into a prioritization meeting where we look at the constraints of the business, what we want to achieve as a business, and we stack, rank, and schedule things. And if it's a product thing or a design thing, it goes to engineering. And there are good things about this. It means we have high bandwidth communication from our customers to the company because our employees are all customers. Our employees' friends and family are all customers. Our employees provide support to customers. There's an element of agency in that everyone who submits an idea, regardless of where they are in the company, goes through the same level of respect and understanding. Like, my ideas are no more valuable than anyone else's ideas in the company. But there are some downsides to this as well, and this is what we're thinking about going about fixing. What we want to do is move to a process whereby the business goals are up front. While everyone understands the business goals, we want to help sort of reinforce the internalization of those goals by having a very distinct feedback loop. We're a very data-driven company. We measure everything that we do. That's how we keep that arrogance in check that I was going to talk about. but we want to have this feedback loop where we measure things against goals and sort of increase awareness of the shared purpose that way. The second change that we want to make is move from prioritization meetings into a prioritization mechanism. And by mechanism, I mean like a voting process, where everyone in the company literally has a vote and a say in how we prioritize. This is doubling down on things that we think are important to our success. I'm a little over time. I want to leave you with sort of two things. One is why this is really important to us. We sort of started this business. I have a background in I spent some time doing direct response optimization. And I thought direct response is how we were going to acquire customers, because that's how banks do it online. We found out that we ended up building a brand in the process, and it was totally by accident. And what we've discovered is that our brand is our culture, and our culture is our brand. So thinking about these questions about how you scale a business around these values is just critical for not only our brand, but our culture and our sort of unified success. And so I want to return back to the very first thing that I said, which is that everyone at Simple is sort of involved in this design process. And if you are working at a company or thinking of starting a company that wants to have design as a brand differentiator, you cannot do that, in my opinion, with a design group or a design team who's solely responsible for that. It needs to be something that's across the company, because if it's segmented away, the forces of office politics and weird dynamics will lead to the marginalization of that. And for a company to be truly designed for it, it needs to involve everyone. So I hope this has been cool for you guys. Thank you for your time.